All right, we are live. How you doing, people? I just kind of jumped on today and didn't really give everyone a chance. I usually try and give people a run up to when the video is happening, but I wasn't quite sure about what time I was going to start, so I left it up in the air. I'm going to have to apologize in advance because I've been actually waiting for. We have gardeners come through. They're not my gardeners. I don't hire them, but I've been waiting all morning for them to come through, and I knew as soon as I started a video that they would arrive. So I just started a video. If they arrive, I'm going to have to stop because they're going to pretty much destroy any chance of having a live chat while they're here. So I just decided to try anyways and see if I can get this in before they get here. But hello all, welcome to Black Bear News. Please remember to like the video and to make sure that you are still subscribed. You can support this channel on PayPal, Venmo, Patreon, and you can watch these videos on Rockfin as well. So of course, you know, the situation continues. There is so much to talk about. I never really know where to begin, but I was going to begin with a very interesting very interesting thing that's happening right now, in that the response to all of this is the response that, you know, the government, federal and state and local governments are proposing to all of this is socialism. You know, we are there. I'm seeing on the news that we will probably see a UBI, a universal basic income, implemented very soon. I talked about this last night. We're basically seeing, you know, free medical help being promised. Not necessarily a free Medicare for all, right? We're not treating everybody for every symptom, but basically coronavirus. But, you know, the things that we're implementing in the face of coronavirus are basically, you know, on the lines of free medical care. So that's socialism. I'm looking at this live update. Hold on. I'd rather abhor the New York Times, but anyways, this is from the New York Times. Coronavirus live update. Trump invokes law to increase medical supplies, including masks. So, you know, they're very quickly signing into law, you know, socialist answers to problems that we could only figure out in the free market before. Also, I just saw that Gavin Newsom, the California governor, is they're intending to take care of all the homeless. They're right now they're talking about enacting something that will basically house all the homeless people. So all of these things that were impossible 1 month ago, politically impossible, all these things that were like big fights that we had to get done in Congress. Boom! Immediately, you know, we're like, oh yeah, that's a total possibility, and it's probably going to happen very soon. Not to mention the actual the cash injection into the banking system, into the, you know, that's socialism in and of itself, right? The banking system is not operating under a free market standard on any level, because if they were, they'd be failing. And they'd be going out of business, and they'd be declaring bankruptcy, and they'd be taken over by the government. No, instead, we're just going to give them a lot of money. So that's called socialism for the rich. So it's just a really, and then you have the DNC insisting that the elections should go on, and even insisting things like Joe Biden is the guy that everybody likes, which I can't even really fathom the reality of that. I don't even think that that's real or logical. It just doesn't make any sense to me, and I'll talk about that later. But so we can't have this crazy lefty, wild-eyed revolution, but we can implement all the things that this crazy lefty, wild-eyed revolution is talking about in the face of an emergency. And why don't we have this crazy, wild-eyed leftist revolutionary manning the helm in this crisis? I just don't get it. So yeah, let's. I am amazed, and maybe slightly amused that we're implementing all these socialist ideas on a dime. At least seriously talking about passing them on a dime with little to no or debate or argument around it. No, this is this makes sense. This is going to happen. We're going to do this, and I think it's actually fair for the people who are going to be experiencing the problems with this. So, hello all. Just going to say hi, David Sisson, Damian Gonzalez, Prudhomme says Italy just announced additional 475 deaths in one day. It's astounding. That's a pretty big number. Rolf Jander, Cindy Seeley, James Michael Campbell, Boiled Rope Lampposts, Market Freefall, indeed. Jody Connolly, how you doing? Zoxalix says we are heading for disasters this summer with climate catastrophe on top of the virus. Yeah, and I wanted to talk about that, Prudhomme. I'm going to get to that. Exit polls and primary results show that rigging is going on, divergence of 10% from the result. Yeah, there's a lot of information and talk about what's going on with the polling. So we're gonna get to that. Ring-tailed fox says Canadian border is closed to non-essential traffic. Zoxalix says how to deal with Florida on fire when everyone is locked down. Is Florida on fire? I have not heard anything about that, if that's true. Ring-tailed fox says Canadian border is closed down to non-essential traffic. Only those returning home or truck drivers are allowed to continue through. Cindy Seeley says the Biden numbers are literally unbelievable, i.e. lies. Yeah. I think that, and a lot of other people are starting to realize that we are being had. So let's go through some of this news. Some more coronavirus updates. Navy hospital ship heading to New York City. Death toll in the U.S. is 115. Stocks fall again. Of course, that is happening. Let's see. 6,500 confirmed cases in the U.S. as of Wednesday morning. 1 week ago, the U.S. death toll was at 33. Now at 115. The number of U.S. cases rolled past 1,300. So that's about a quadrupling of the numbers, give or take. Worldwide, the virus has killed 8,200 people, more than 204,000 infections. A week ago, the death toll reached 4,600. Let's see. Coronavirus travel restrictions around the world. All foreign nationals in the United States, all foreign nationals from China, Iran, and certain European countries are barred from entering the United States. This ban includes anyone who visited the countries within 14 days prior to the U.S. trip. Let's see. Canada, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced he was closing the country's borders to non-citizens. Mexico currently has no travel restrictions in place. The Caribbean, Aruba has banned all non-residents from traveling to the island. The ban is in place until March 31. Costa Rica is banning all foreigners from entering the island effective at midnight or 11:59 p.m. March 18th, that's tonight, through April 12th. The ban applies to air, land, and sea arrivals. The Dominican Republic has suspended all flights to and from Europe, China, Korea, Iran. The ban went into effect March 16th. South America, Argentina, all foreigners who are not residents of Argentina are banned from entering the country until April 1. They may extend the date. Bolivia, interim president suspended all flights to and from Europe. Paraguay canceled flights from Ocean to Madrid, which is the only direct route into Europe. The European Union, President Ursula von der Leyen announced Monday on Twitter that she was restricting all non-essential travel to the European Union for 30 days. Exemptions include family members of European nationals, diplomats, essential staff, etc. Australia, foreign nationals who have been to China, Iran, South Korea are not allowed to enter Australia for 14 days. Also, let me see. Belgium is locked down. Belgium is on lockdown. March 15th, Australian government announced that all travelers will be subject to the 14-day quarantine after arriving. And cruise lines from foreign ports are banned from Australia for 30 days. China, people traveling to Beijing, Shanghai, Guangdong province, and Sichuan province will be quarantined for 14 days in a Chinese facility if they have recently visited countries with severe outbreaks. India, the country has suspended all existing visas until April 15th. As of March 16th, travelers from the European Union, European Free Trade Association, Turkey, or United Kingdom were banned from entering India. Officials said Afghanistan, Philippines, Malaysia added Afghanistan, Philippines, and Malaysia to that list on March 17th. Japan, foreign nationals with a Chinese passport issued by Hubei or Zhejiang provinces, and those who have visited Iran, Italy, San Marino, or South Korea in the last 14 days are barred or banned from entering the country. Thailand, travelers who have been in the United States in the past 14 days will be subject to self-monitoring and reporting requirements upon arrival in Thailand. Additionally, travelers from Iran, Italy, China, Korea, Hong Kong, Macau must submit proof that their airline at check-in that they tested negative for the coronavirus. Also must show proof of health insurance with coverage of at least $100,000. Israel, foreign nationals are banned from entering the country. Saudi Arabia, all international flights to and from Saudi Arabia are suspended for 2 weeks. South Africa has imposed a travel ban on foreign nationals from high-risk countries: United States, Italy, Iran, South Korea, Spain, Germany, United Kingdom, and China, starting today. Kenya, banning all travelers from countries that have reported coronavirus cases. How many is that? Morocco, government of Morocco announced it was suspending all international travel in and out of Morocco. That is probably not a complete list, but that is quite a list. Zoxalix, cluster, boom, bust. UK deaths are now 104, says Proudhon. Jody Connolly, exactly. Oh yeah, how are you going to pay for it? Was uttered merely a month ago. How are you going to pay for it? Just like injecting $2.2 trillion into the banking system, it's just strokes on a keyboard. That's how you pay for it. You just make the money up and you send it out. That's how you pay for it. So I didn't really get into this last night, but something that the economic doomers always talk about is that implementing something like a UBI would crash the economic system. If you started just handing out money to people, it would start to become worthless, or at least that's their theory. And then there's, the modern monetary theory, which says that if you just support, you can print up however much money you want, and it's not really going to hurt the system at all. And, we don't really know because it hasn't really been implemented. It has been implemented in other places like Zimbabwe and not Argentina, but Venezuela, where they're just printing up, gobs and gobs of paper dollars, but they don't mean anything. And this has also happened in places like Mexico in the past. This has happened in the past where you just can print. The value of the currency becomes so deflated that it doesn't really, you need like a backpack or a box full of dollars to pay for toilet paper, perhaps. I don't know. So I don't know if issuing UBI would create something like that. Would create that scenario or add to a economic collapse scenario. I'm not totally sure about it, but I do know that it's been proven fairly successful to inject trillions of dollars into the banking system. You have these outsized, derivative balances or debt balance sheets. And are they really worth anything? All of those things are just, ones and zeros on a computer disk. They're fairly meaningless. If you wanted to wipe them out, you could. If you wanted to just magically one day say, that's it, all of these things are meaningless and they're all just going to go away. What would that mean in the real world of finance? Probably not much. There are people that would be holding debt that would be affected, of course, but if you render debt worthless or meaningless, then you kind of just start you bring everything back down to zero again and start from there. So I don't know, why not do that for the people at large? Why not do that for the real economy, which is consumerism, or people going out and spending money, buying things that they need, and in turn, companies and factories producing the things that they need. But obviously this whole banking system is built on, a lie that everybody must agree to, right? So they're the way that they keep that thing in place, that monetary system in place, is by telling you that if it's not there, that everything will fall apart. But before that system was in place, before the debt finance system was in place, there was money. People used money, and there was money used that wasn't necessarily backed by anything. There was money used that wasn't backed by gold or silver, or it just during the Civil War. The term greenback comes from the dollars that were printed by Abe Lincoln. Just printed money to fund the war and to pay troops and pay for food, and it wasn't backed by anything. It was just here you go. Here's some dollars. That didn't necessarily crash the banking system. And Abe Lincoln was actually opposed to the current debt finance system that was put in place, and many people think that that's the true reason why he was assassinated. Also, another reason why JFK was assassinated was because he wanted to get rid of the Federal Reserve. Abe Lincoln was against the Federal Reserve. They were trying to put it in place for decades. And he proved that you could just print money up and give it out to people, and it wasn't really a big deal. Rolf Jander says, if you are not in debt, you are of no use to the establishment. Exactly. Let's go back. I want to go back and read through some of these. Natural Progressive says they are still asking how to pay for the checks to the people, but not corporate bailouts. Exactly. It's so ridiculous. It is so ridiculous. And the people that are asking this question, at least the people that are in the media, or the people who are part of the government, or part of the control structure, they totally understand that this is a bullshit question. They understand that that's a lie. That of course they can pay for it. By throwing that question out there, they're manufacturing the idea in people's minds that, like, oh yeah, we really have to be concerned about this, when they're not concerned about it at all. When they handing over $2 trillion of the banking system, and this wasn't just in the last 72 hours. This has been going on for the last 6 months. That the Fed has been pumping money into the banking system to try and prop it up. This has been going on since last summer. Not a lot of people understand that or know about it, but hey, what's happened since then? I don't know. Everything seems to be chugging along. We're not hitting rapid deflation or inflation. Neither of those things are happening. Nothing was happening until we had this big coronavirus situation. So that's the thing that's putting the pressure on the economic system at the moment and creating this need, this outward need, like, oh, we need this money to prop up the banking system. So, and now people are saying, and rightfully asking the question, what about us? How are we going to deal with this? Kuro Hike says, I don't think it would actually affect inflation because scarcity is so high. $1,000 per person would hardly scratch the surface. Indeed. Well, $1,000 per person isn't going to keep anybody afloat. I mean, if they're having mortgage or rent forgiveness, they already implemented a tax forgiveness. So we have 3 extra months to pay our taxes this year. That's good. $1,000 would help you, just not starve, right? You could go out and buy groceries. That's about it. It's not really going to pay your bills. I mean, for anybody living in a middle-class household, $1,000 is not very much money, right? It's, maybe 1 week's worth of money. Maybe 2 weeks if you're really scratching. So $1,000 isn't going to cover it, but it's going to make sure that people don't starve or, roll out into the streets, Mad Max style, looking to hurt somebody or looking to take down the government. Lightning Rod, hello from Thunder Bay. Ring-tailed Fox says, I fear the bankers would rather kill the world and themselves than have a debt jubilee. They'll destroy whatever they cannot control. I don't know, though. I mean, I kind of actually feel like there might be a good case to be made for if okay, this is just a suppose, okay? I'm not saying that this is reality or that I believe that this is reality. But if this coronavirus is somehow manufactured, if this whole situation is somehow kabuki theater, and they're seeking to dissolve that huge derivative debt bubble that's been threatening to blow up the entire banking system, this would be the way to do it, right? You create something that creates a global economic crisis. You crash all the markets. You start ramping up manufacturing the crisis to manufacture the need for the answer, right? Everybody knows about that equation. So you create the necessity to find the answer to it, and then they start talking about what the answer is. The answer is, giving people UBI. The answer is, reforming the entire banking system. The answer is doing away with cash, or the answer is, whatever it might be, a debt jubilee, or the answer is, zeroing out all debt and starting from scratch. The answer is implementing a global currency. If anybody does follow the economic doomers, they talk a lot about the Economist cover, right? There's that famous Economist cover with the phoenix wearing like a medallion around its neck, and it says, I think it said the year 2018, if I'm not mistaken. Anybody know about this? Anyways, they all kind of bought into this idea that would be the year that this entire economic crash was going to happen, and there was going to be a huge debt jubilee and all this kind of stuff, and that there was going to be a global currency implemented. So, maybe they were off by a couple years, but maybe, 2 years is not that far off the number, right? I mean, they've been predicting this for quite a while, so this isn't necessarily a surprise. Jody Connolly says Rome used to debt forgive when it was impossible to pay during lean years. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of something that's happened throughout history. It's not, it's not unimaginable by any stretch. It's happened over time where, debts got so out of control or so out of proportion to the actual liquidity of the economic system that they're like, all right, we're gonna recalibrate. We're gonna bring everything back down to zero and start over. Irk1, I did say Abe Lincoln. Did you say Abe Lincoln? Trish Kaiser says, boo his corporate bailouts. Prudhone, Jody Connolly, debt forgiveness is common in ancient cultures. It is given even in the Old Testament. But the Christians in D.C. haven't read that bit. Exactly. I mean, debt jubilee is actually a biblical reference. Zoxalix says Biden and Bernie just killed people getting them to vote. Okay, so here's this ridiculous. Where is this? Ridiculous quote on Twitter, and now this is being pushed out. I don't know if I'm going to find it. This is being pushed out, or is going to be pushed out as a way to get Bernie Sanders to get him out of the race. This is a Twitter status that says, blowout win in Florida for Joe Biden, which was expected. At what price? Bernie Sanders refusing to politely drop out and prevent thousands of senior citizens from exposing themselves to coronavirus. So much for healthcare. Okay, so this is absolute bullshit. They're trying to blame Bernie Sanders. Of course, because we have to blame Bernie Sanders for everything in the Democratic Party. And now we're blaming him for exposing people. It wasn't Bernie Sanders' fault. Not in the slightest. It was the DNC's fault. I think Bernie Sanders and his camp would have totally understood and supported suspending these primaries. They wouldn't have been like, let's go ahead at all. That wasn't their take at all. In fact, Bernie Sanders wasn't even talking in the last few days, wasn't even talking about the election. He was talking about the coronavirus crisis. He was like, let's deal with this crisis. Let's not campaign right now. Let's not talk about this primary thing right now. So it's not his fault on any level, and he did not support this going forward on any level. He wasn't concerned with, we must have a vote. He wasn't doing that at all. It was the DNC, and it was all the Biden backers. So I need to actually respond to this person as in, fuck you, Jack, you stupid ass. It's pretty much the only way you can put it sometimes. You're stupid, and so go away. So let's move on. I talked about this already. Belgium enters lockdown over coronavirus crisis until April 5th. So yeah, guys, it's looking like we're going to be, we're definitely going to be locked down. There's, a lot of countries are going to be locked down until, you know, I think a two week scenario is extremely optimistic. Even though who knows, it could take 2 weeks to kind of flatten the curve a little bit, but we're definitely looking at least a month, if not two. So I'm seeing people kind of move things that they had scheduled in March and April to like May and June. Personally, I think May might be a little optimistic, so probably June more likely. But I don't know. I saw Jimmy Dore had a show planned for May 1st, so I hope he's right. I hope hope things are better by May 1st. Yeah, we kind of like wrestle with this through April, and maybe things start to get back to normal on May 1st. That would be optimistic, indeed. Scott Wood says 2018 is correct. Yes. No representation says we are in a spot where we are getting our pay. We are not getting our pay no matter what. Extra 1,000 each is huge. Well, yeah. You said we are getting our pay no matter what. I don't know about that. Maybe that was a typo. Jay Ackert says sky has been very clear here in Western New York. Okay, thanks for the report. I appreciate that. Yeah, anybody who can report on contrails or lack of contrails, I'd be interested, because that's another like side issue that people have been talking about. We've been cloudy for 2 weeks straight, and we're going to be cloudy again for 2 weeks straight. I haven't seen any contrails at all. So, something interesting to keep your eye on. Due to the lack of travel. But, I don't know that necessarily proves anything one way or the other. I don't know that really like proves much, because I have, as I've said over the last few years, since Trump took office, I have noticed that there have been weeks and even months where there were zero contrails in the sky. And I thought, that's odd, because we saw contrails every single day. For the last 5 years of my life, I noticed that there were contrails in the sky every single day, and now all of a sudden they're gone. That seems weirder to me than them being there all the time. So the lack of contrails doesn't necessarily prove anything one way or the other, to me anyways. Dana Patterson says Joe Biden encouraged his people to vote. Ding. Ding. I'm telling you right now, if people trying to blame Bernie Sanders for this are need to just seriously go away. Go away and stop lying. Stop being liars. Joe Biden encouraged people to vote. The DNC encouraged people to vote, told people primaries are still going on. Go ahead and vote. They wanted this. Zoxalic says Bernie could have said no. He could have said no. You're right. Again, this goes back to Bernie's unwillingness to fight the DNC or to stand his ground. I think he would have agreed if they would have said no. He would have been like, oh, yeah. And Bernie should have been much more vocal. When you have the Republican governor of Ohio saying, let's call it off, Bernie should have been up in there saying, I agree with this. We should call the whole thing off. Although he runs the risk of making it look like, well, I'm losing, so I want the primaries to be postponed. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. People are going to say what they're going to say anyways. Do the right thing. I agree, Zoxalix, yes. I agree. Biden belongs to DuPont. Exactly. Exactly. So let's move on to more news. Stock market, U.S. stocks open lower, erasing recent gains and plunging shares deeper into bear territory. So whatever they're doing is not helping. The roller coaster ride of equity markets continues as all of major stock indexes opened sharply lower one day after President Donald Trump announced the intention to push through a sweeping aid package, including the potential for a direct payout to most American workers. It's coming, guys. And there you go. Socialism. Socialism as a response to this crisis it's all socialism. So we couldn't pay for it. We couldn't do it. It was wild-eyed, crazy, lunatic, revolutionary left-wing stuff as of 2 or 3 weeks ago. And now everybody's like, how about that UBI? How about that Medicare for all? Yeah, domestic indexes had risen sharply on Tuesday. Market volatility increasingly seems to be the new normal, according to market analysts, some of the nation's biggest financial firms. So the Dow Jones dropped almost 6%, 5.75%. S&P fell 5%. Nasdaq 4.18%. The declines, however, are not spread equally. Companies like Uber, Lyft, and CrowdStrike and Slack have taken extra large lumps in recent weeks. Ouch. It appears that the optimism that drove their value as private and later newly public companies has fallen away. Well, those companies weren't turning a profit anyways. Or barely profitable or barely operational. So now with this, I don't know what that means for the future of these particular companies. Clay Baum says it's never going back to normal. NWO lockdown coming soon. We'll see. I mean, I'm not surprised by any direction that this goes in, is all I'm saying. Again, I will reiterate the fact that we have two roads ahead of us. There's the possibility that within a month or so that things, start to stabilize and we kind of start picking up something normal as far as, whatever normal is, going back to some kind of business as usual. But still dealing with this problem. Maybe it's 2 months, maybe it's 3 months, I don't know. And then the other road is that everything just continues to spiral out of control, and we end up maybe it's 6 months of dealing with coronavirus and years of dealing with economic fallout from it. Nobody knows where this is going. Absolutely nobody knows where this is going. Nobody knows where the floor is. Nobody knows where the bottom is. Nobody knows if the elections will be called off. Christian Sorensen says, if you have an election this year, I'll be surprised. Again, I'm expecting that by November, things might be stabilized enough for us to have an election. And, on some level, I'm hoping that there is some kind of normalcy in that. But the likelihood that, we are not back to normal then is also quite high. So I'm not counting on anything being one way or the other. Scott Wood says Canada over 600 cases, up 200 since yesterday. So, of course, this has a doubling time of 4 days, every 4 days. And it looks like it's actually, progressing along those, somewhat along those lines, somewhat faster, somewhat slower. We'll see how it goes. Again, China seems to be somewhat. They have had an overwhelming response to this, and they seem to be on the other side of the exponential case growth in China. So that's, I'd take that as some kind of good news. Not to say that we're dealing with it correctly, but the fact that there's another side to this, there is, some kind of light at the end of the tunnel, which, China is exhibiting. I think South Korea might be dealing with this. Let me see. Hold on one second. So they did massive testing in South Korea. And this is from a day ago. Right. Coronavirus cases have dropped sharply in South Korea already. So, South Korea was one of the first places that this spread to. And they had a serious problem with exponential case growth. They took this very, very seriously. They didn't necessarily lock down the country, but they did widespread testing. And I think, obviously a lot of people quarantined, self-quarantined. Let's read this, and I'm gonna have to finish up this video, guys. But I will be back tonight. Coronavirus cases have dropped sharply in South Korea. Europe is now the epicenter of the COVID-19 pandemic. Case counts and deaths are soaring in Italy, Spain, France, Germany. Many countries have imposed lockdowns and closed borders. Meanwhile, the United States, hampered by a fiasco with delayed and faulty test kits, is just guessing at its COVID-19 burden, though experts believe it is on the same trajectory as countries in Europe. Amid these dire trends, South Korea has emerged as a sign of hope and a model to emulate. The country of 50 million appears to have greatly slowed its epidemic. It reported only 74 new cases today, down from 909 at its peak on February 29th. And it has done so without locking down entire cities or taking some of the other authoritarian measures that helped China bring its epidemic under control. South Korea is a democratic republic. We feel a lockdown is not a reasonable choice, says Kim Woo-ju, an infectious disease specialist at Korea University. South Korea's success may hold lessons for other countries and also a warning. Even after driving case numbers down, the country is braced for a resurgence. Behind its success so far has been the most expansive and well-organized testing program in the world, combined with extensive efforts to isolate infected people and trace and quarantine their contacts. South Korea has tested more than 270,000 people, which amounts to more than 5,200 tests per million inhabitants, more than any other country except tiny Bahrain, according to the Worldometer website. The United States so far has carried out 74 tests per 1 million inhabitants. Data from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention show. South Korea's experience shows that diagnostic capacity at scale is key to epidemic control. Contact tracing is also very influential in epidemic control, as is case isolation. So listen, guys, China and South Korea are on the other side of this coronavirus problem. They've got a handle on it. They ramped up their response to it. It is March 17th. So South Korea was starting to get deeply affected in mid-February. This is just 1 month. China obviously was ongoing problem. They started ramping up their response in January and through February. But they are only reporting, I think the last time I reported on this, they had 38 new cases in one day. So they are handling it, which is good, which is a good sign. So look, there's a possibility that if we ramp up our response to this, and we already are ramping up our response to this, testing, isolation, quarantining, distancing, making sure that people that need treatment get treatment. If we continue to have the correct response to this, we could see a downturn in cases, in the space of a month or 2 months. So, I think that's something to be, somewhat hopeful for. Whether or not we trigger an economic meltdown that, continues to affect us after this coronavirus thing is over, we don't know. Anyways, guys, Pascal Paradise says vote blue no matter who. Should DNC forced voters out? This is way crazy. The USA is effed. Zoxalic says free porn, free movies. Well, can't argue with you on that one. Deacon says Universal will be streaming all their upcoming movie releases. All right, that's wise. Salt Laker says, come on, this is much better than Game of Thrones. Robert Jan Schuten says, Amsterdam represent. City's getting more quiet by the hour. Dana Patterson says, testing is the problem, not enough. Who's talking about Doomcock? Anyways. Human says, nobody gets off the planet alive. Can we start voting people off the island? Ringtailed Fox says, I don't know if they're improving. Kevin, they have every reason to say, yeah, we're getting better now. Well, I mean, yeah, it's totally possible that they could be, lying all, about their numbers. But, the trajectory of what's been happening has been, they're like, hey, we're infected. We've got this stuff going on. We have these cases. It's getting out of control. Here's what we're going to do. China built a bunch of hospitals. South Korea tested everybody. They had a response to it. And it seems that response had a positive effect on the virus. Now, what the fallout is or what the long-term repercussions are, nobody knows yet. Is this going to come back? Are there going to be second and third waves of this virus? Many people think that's likely. I don't know. Cindy Seeley, hit like, y'all. Thank you so much. So, again, best case scenario, we're on the other side of this and by the end of April or May. And things try to claw their way back to normalcy, or, worst case scenario, things spiral out of control and we enter a global economic crash, compounded by the coronavirus. And then nobody knows where we are. On top of, add into the mix, the wonderful world of global dimming, which is, all this industrial activity that's going to be stopped for the next 2 months. And that's been stopped for the last month or two in China. You add the lack of air travel and global industrial activity, globally to that for the next, 2-3 months. What does that mean for global temperatures in the short term? So, we're on a roller coaster and we don't know where the end is. We don't know where we're going to stop. We don't know where we're going to get off. For the time being, hold tight, guys, and try and enjoy the ride wherever you can. Obioma Fashion says degrowth system. Indeed. And, I think, so I'll talk again more about this tonight. But George Sacroclides, brought up in a few of his articles that he's written lately that this is, others are saying the same thing. This is a good opportunity to expose the system for what it is, they're introducing socialist responses to this problem. So this is a really good chance for people to go, hey, look how obviously, effective and helpful this is to human beings at large. This is an opportunity to transform our system. And furthermore, this coordinated response to coronavirus can easily be translated into a coordinated response to climate change. If the voices are loud enough, if the will is strong enough, Bernie Sanders is doing a lot for pushing forward the socialist causes and the socialist agenda, but it's going to be up to a lot of other people, right? Bernie Sanders has exposed his weaknesses and his unwillingness to actually fight, to call the system out and call people out and call them what they, call them out for what they are. So it's going to be up to other people and other leaders to step forward and say, look, this is what we need. This has been proven effective. And damn it, we're not going to sit down or stand down for anything less. And it's time. It is time for a revolution. It is time for, an economic worldwide revolution in order to face the specter of climate change and to, build a healthy society, a healthy functioning society, and a society that doesn't run on exploitation and hurting people economically and starving people and chewing people up and spitting them out and chewing up the environment and spitting it out. Like we need a full-blown revolution in how we operate. And so this is a good opportunity for making that case and for taking a stand for that. Deacon says, hey, Kev, a suggestion, maybe you could set up a link in your community page to keep the conversation going until we see you again. Great idea, Deacon. I will try and do that. If I don't do that immediately, I will get that done, soon. But thank you for the suggestion. I really appreciate that. Jody Connolly, here comes fire season for Cali. Perfect timing, indeed. Exactly. Same response to global warming as coronavirus. Andrew Walsh says it's too late. We are locked in. Well, as long as we have a functioning society and we have, the ability to keep things relatively organized, we have a chance to possibly turn this around. Never say never. It's not over until it's over. Are we close to over? Sure. Are we getting super close to being over? Sure. But Boyd Gilbreth says no one word answer. True. I mean, it's got to be there's so many facets to this. It's not just socialism, but there's degrowth, there's socialism, there's anarchism. There's so many other, there's so many ideas out there. It has to be, a blend of ideas and communities and consciousnesses. Irk One says Corona is that response, but unwilling to admit climate change is a reality by powers that be. Indeed. Blaming the virus gets us off the hook. Indeed. Deacon says the McPherson paradox isn't a done deal just yet. It isn't just yet. Will it? Salt Lakers NASDAQ negative 666. Dun, dun, dun. All right, guys, I got to take off. I'll be back tonight. Thanks for tuning in to this morning edition of Black Bear News. Thanks for joining me in the chat. There are so many more things to talk about and discuss, so I will be back tonight. There are many things I missed in this video that I wanted to bring up, but that's how it goes. I will try and set up a link for discussion in the community page, or there might be other avenues to having some kind of community discussion, Black Bear News chat page or discussion page going on. So anyways, thank you so much, guys. Hang tight. Enjoy your afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you are, and I will talk to you later.